Hello, folks. Welcome to the HireMyVA Team and Business Building Podcast, where we help you to reclaim your freedom through hiring and thriving with virtual assistants without breaking the bank, and that means your bank. I'm Dave Braun, and as usual, I'm here with Larry Broughton. It's my fantastic friend, mentor. He's traveling through life with me. Oh my gosh, Larry, love you, man. How are you doing today?
I'm great, handsome Dave. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
It's been like making sausage to get to this point where we are today.
Take number 4, right?
And well, we will just, you'll have to catch it in a blooper reel that we release one day, my friends.
Do we have to do that?
Well, that would be fun for everybody. But let's dive into this. We have a good question this week.
Yeah, we do have a good question. So question is, what is the Kolbe assessment? Yeah. And so we're going to talk about that in this episode. It's the Kolbe A Index assessment. We're going to talk about it in this episode and in the next episode. So this one, we're going to talk about what it is. And then the next episode, we're going to give you a few more details on how you can really use it in your business. Yeah. It makes sense to split this up into 2 different ones. So Larry, we've been using this for years in our businesses. We've been recommending it to clients and they're using it. In fact, in some of the coaching that we've done, it's really made a difference in some of the hiring process that they've gone through. So let's talk about what it is. And I know, Larry, you're an expert, and let me just turn this over to you.
Well, I don't know that I'm an expert. I do use this a lot. There are people that are a lot smarter than I am. I'm just somebody who uses it on a regular basis in our hotel organization, in our organizations, with our coaching clients and mentees. So yeah, I mean, I'm very, very, very familiar with it. Not sure that I'm an expert, but I know enough to be dangerous. Okay. So let me start with what it's not. Okay. It's not Kolby like the cheese. Okay. Good. It's Kolbe, named after the family who developed this whole thing. Kathy Kolbe is the one really leading the organization at this point. But you know, we hear all kinds of personality tests, Dave, right? And people get so freaked out about these tests that they have to take. Oftentimes they have to take these tests in order to get hired at organizations, whether it's DISC or Myers-Briggs or the Enneagram, right? What I want people to do when it comes to taking any of these types of assessments, and I'm using this word intentionally right now, is that the Kolbe or the Strength Finders or the Myers-Briggs, they're not tests.
Right.
There's no right or wrong. It just is. The results, it just is. When we look at them as a test, we end up trying to beat the system on it, right?
We want to
answer it the way we think they want us to answer it.
Yeah, or the way we want to appear to be, right? You know, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Right. And then you end up, well, for one thing, the Kolbe can tell. All right. How many times, Dave, have you and I administered this thing or had a coaching client take this thing, or even team members take it, and it comes back as like with invalid results?
Right? Never.
Because they can tell. Well, actually, it does. It comes back with like the 3 asterisks, or it does give you indications that hey, either they are in extreme distress right now, or maybe they're in transition in their life, but we're not getting clear results on it.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so just keep in mind that when you're taking any of these, like Myers-Briggs or DISC, or especially Kolbe or Strength Finders, just answer the questions as they're supposed to, because it's just an assessment. Okay, the Kolbe it's not like an IQ test, so it's not measuring your intelligence, it's not measuring your personality or even your social style like some of these do. It measures the instinctive ways you take action when you strive, when you try to do things. How do you reflexively reply to stimuli? Okay. And really, I'm going to get a little bit wonkish here for a second. Your mind has 3 parts, right? There's the cognitive, and that's what we hear of most of the time when people are trying to measure intelligence. Like the cognitive, if I were to hold up my resume and shake my resume at you, that's the stuff that a resume is showing.
Oh, okay.
This is the kind of education that I had. Here are my credentials, right? Here's what my IQ is, okay? Your cognitive brain grows as you learn, okay? So IQ tests kind of measure that. Then there's the affective brain, all right? And that's the part that we're not measuring that part either under this. The affective brain is like, this is where your strengths lie in your ability to use emotions effectively. Okay. That's where the Myers-Briggs comes
Okay.
in. Okay. The conative brain, on the other hand, like people like Aristotle used to talk about the conative brain, and then we got away from that for a long time. Your conative mind contains the instincts and the innate attributes that define your natural method of operation, your MO.
Uh-huh.
So when you work in your natural style, you're much more productive, you're much more comfortable, and you're much more successful. This is when you're working in your strengths like this is where there's less burnout. Right? Those
Right.
folks who get burned out and angry and frustrated, they're oftentimes not working in their conative strengths. All right. And so what Kolbe does helps identify what are those instinctive strengths. It helps explain them. You analyze them. And then ultimately you can build tasks and teams around your Kolbe scores. Imagine if
Mm-hmm.
you every day got to go in, if you, first of all, you knew what your strengths were, and then you were able to work in them all the time.
Yeah.
And then imagine if you had a team and everyone on your team was spending 60, 70, or 80% of the time working inside their strengths. What would morale look like inside your
Oh, it'd be
organization?
like off the charts. People would be having so much fun. They'd be like, I can't wait to get into work. Right.
That's absolutely right. This is
Yeah.
why we spend so much time, Dave, trying to get people to understand what their inherent strengths are through the Kolbe, but also to a lesser degree, the CliftonStrengths finders, and then make sure that their teams are built around these as well. And but really kind of, if you boil this down to its simplest form, the conative mind drives action.
Okay.
Right? Actions drive performance. And so to understand how you and other folks on your team achieve peak performance, you need to understand that the conative mind is really part of this whole thing. So the Kolbe, do you want to share mine or yours, Dave?
Yeah, I think it's a good time to do that. So folks, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see it, but we'll try to describe it to you the best we can.
Yeah, so many folks have taken these types of assessments before. It's an online assessment, right? And in the show notes, you'll be able to click on the link if you decide you want to take this thing. There is a fee for it, of course, like a lot of these things, but I forget what the fee is right now, but it's kind of a nominal fee to take this thing. And, you spend several minutes and you go through it and you answer a bunch of questions, and then they will send you the results. And if you look at the screen now, this is my actual Kolbe A Index assessment. And so if you look at the numbers, it's 5293. All right, Larry, what the heck is that? I see there's different colors on there. 1 is at the top, 10 is at the bottom. Well, what Kolbe does is they break out the conative brain into 4 different action modes. Okay. And I'm just going to give you a very brief overview. I'm not going to go into great detail on this. So I might spend another 2 minutes on this. And you move from left to right, beginning with your high score first. All right. So that's what you initiate with. So if somebody says, hey, Dave, or somebody says, hey, Larry, what's your Kolbe score? I would say 5293. Okay. Now my dominant, or my, oh gosh, I'm having a brain freeze, Dave.
So your dominant mode of action.
Yeah, would be the high one, which would be number 9. All right. So it'd be a quick start, initiating. There you go. So I'm an initiating quick start because that's the high one. Okay. So I'm initiating quick start. Okay.
So if it's a high number in any of these, it means you're initiating in that mode.
Yeah. So if it's 1, 2, or 3, that means I'm resistant. So like I'm a resistant follow through. Okay. So let me go through those. So starting from left to right, a fact finder, people who are high fact finders, this is the instinct. They need to probe. They need to learn. They need to get information. Okay. Researchers are really high fact finders.
So they would be like around 8 or 9 or something.
Yeah,
like that.
8, 9, or 10. Exactly. Right.
Okay.
Exactly. People who are high in follow through, their instinct is the need to follow and develop patterns. These are people who are very organized, engineers in the fall in this spot.
Systems operationals type people.
Exactly. Yes.
Oh, wow.
So like our former chief operating officer was like a 8.7. So he loved getting research, and then he loved having systems to back up and implement the research that he had found. Okay. That makes sense?
Yeah, totally.
Quick start, which is the third one, and this is where I initiate from. These are people who love to improvise and deal with risk and uncertainty. These are people that's the gut instinct. These are the people that the way I describe them is they'll stand at the edge of the building, jump off, and say, I'll build the plane on the way down. Yeah. I'll just figure it out. Right? And hopefully I've got somebody like Dave tied to my hip, because he's going to be the one building. Yeah. I've got we'll make it, Dave. I have no idea how.
You have to pull me off of the edge of the building, man. I'm like, oh no, I'm not jumping.
Right. And then the one there, the yellow one, all the way to the left is implementor.
All the way to the right.
I'm sorry, my dyslexia kid, all the way to the right. Yeah, the instinct here is just demonstrate a way that we handle space and tangibles. People who tend to be high or initiating implementers tend to be like designers.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
Quality of touch is very, very important to them. So that's kind of a quick overview. The problem, Dave, is that if I'm a leader and I really get into Kolbe stuff, do you ever interview someone, Dave, and you're like, oh, these people are freaking awesome. I love this person. Sparks are flying. Well, the reason oftentimes is they're very much like you.
Yes.
Okay. They're built like you. They instinctively, there's a connection. The problem in a business environment oftentimes is that you don't want to hire people just like you unless you're trying to replace you.
Correct. Right.
Okay. This is why you and I work so well together. Dave, can you pull yours up really quickly just to show, or maybe you just know what yours is off the top of your head? Dave and I are built very differently. I'm a 5'2", Dave is a 7'8", Okay. Dave, what was your career in a previous life? What was the word I used?
Engineering.
That's right. So he's initiating from systems and organization, right? But for an engineer, you also have to be you need to be able to look for and process information as well. Right. So that's just really roughly how this goes. We go into much greater detail on this, and we'll go into greater detail on this, Dave, I think in the next episode. Yeah. Of this. But I would encourage people, the great thing about the Kolbe A Index, unlike a lot of the others, again, is it measures the conative brain, not the cognitive brain. This stuff does not change, over time.
Yeah, it's our instinctive action modes, right?
That's right. Instinctively, right? So when the pressure is on, that's when your instincts kick in, right?
Yes.
Right. So this is why this one is so important, right? So you can't fake this, right? So if you're in high pressure situations like business, you want people, you want to know how are people built, because if people are just working instinctively, it's so much more efficient, all right, than trying to fake it, all right?
Well, yeah, and it's kind of as we were talking earlier today, is that you can fake it for a period of time, right? In other words, I can act like a high quick start for a short period of time, but it's got to be pretty short. Otherwise, it's going to just be draining. It's going to be driving me nuts, and I won't be successful at it long term. Yeah.
So I'm a 5'2", remember 9'3". So I'm a mid-range fact finder. I can do research for, 40 minutes, After that, I'm like, I gotta stop. I'm not one of those people who can sit down and research all day like a librarian would do, or a research assistant in a chemical or a biology lab or something like that. I can't do that. All right. But I'm not I'm not a resistant to it either. Okay. Right. So like if I need to do research on, like right now we're doing in the hotel company, we're doing research on a property in Massachusetts. And so we're trying to get all kinds of demographic data. We're trying to figure out where do people travel in that area? Where do they come from? I could do that. If I were a 5, I could do a little bit of research. But Melissa, who is an 8, I think she's an 8 fact finder, who's our assistant, She's the one doing a lot of the research on that right now. We wouldn't have somebody who's a 2, because a 2, they wouldn't even know where to begin.
Yeah, and it would take them how many X times longer, right?
That's correct.
To get the same stuff done.
That's correct.
And the reason is, like you said, you're resistant. Here, the way they use the word counteract in the low modes. Yeah.
There you go.
And so you can see here, I like what you had said is, like, when you're a 5, you can do it for a while. It's like a reactionary. You don't resist it, but you're not energized by it. So you can only do it for a certain period of time.
That's right. It's very interesting as you build your teams and you do brainstorming, you start realizing, where do the best practices come? So if I'm looking for an operations person, here's what their Kolbe score ought to be. I'm looking for a marketing person. This is where their score ought to be. I'm looking for a designer. This is where their score ought to be, right? And then ultimately, when you get to be a big organization, there is an organization, Dave, that we've worked with for a long time, where they've got hundreds of team members, and they've got some very rare birds there. Only one that I can think of. And I've only met a couple of these people where it's what they're called a bridge, okay, where there are 4, 5, or 6 in every action mode.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And those people can do just about anything. Right. So like during the brainstorming process, you want people like that in the organization from concept through implementation stage. They can communicate with everybody. The problem, Dave, is, and you can think about this in your romantic lives as well, if you're not very careful and you don't understand EQ, emotional quotients, then conflict can come in as well. So I forget what it is, but if you're like 3 or more degrees apart on any of these, then conflict may arise, right? Because we don't understand people. Why aren't you doing it the way I would do it,
right,
Dave?
Yeah.
Right? So that's one of the questions, right? And if I had a bunch of people around me, and I do sometimes, who don't understand that I'm a high quick start, that I go by instinct, it can drive people nutty. Right.
Yeah.
And if I didn't understand that sometimes people need more information. Again, I'm a 9 quick start, which means, yes, I go by my gut, I go by instinct, but there are some people on the team who need information. And if I don't take extra time to explain to them, this is why we're going to be doing this, their anxiety would go through the roof. They like the research. They give me the facts.
Sure.
Okay. Back this up. We do whole day trainings on this stuff, Dave. And I just want to take maybe 15 minutes today to talk about the Kolbe A Index, the power of it. And again, we'll be talking about this in the next podcast episode as well. But it's one of the most important tools I have found in understanding myself. I remember taking it the first time and saying, aha, no wonder I'm like this. I'm not crazy. I do bring value to an organization, right? Again, it's eye-opening, right? But I think it's one of the most powerful tools that I've seen to help build teams. Highly effective teams, I should say. Highly effective teams.
Highly effective teams, and I don't say this in a bad way, but to take advantage of each other. Like, for example, today when we were
capitalize on strengths. How about that?
Yeah. So in other words, like today when we were talking about, I had a few ideas, and it's like, before I start spending time researching the facts and all that kind of stuff, it's like, well, let me just wait and run it by Larry and see what he thinks. And then he says, this doesn't feel right to me. And like, I've trust you enough to say, okay, I'm not going to worry about it. We'll just go on to the next one. Right. So that creates a lot of efficiencies in your business. Right.
Absolutely.
So and it's a lot more fun too.
Well, I've realized too, Dave, that I can't build my organization, my hotel company by myself.
Yes.
And if I'm going to be more than a one hotel organization, we have to have systems in place. How do we get systems built? Well, by having operations people. Where highly effective operations people come from? Well, from people who are high fact finders and high follow through. People.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
We have to do that.
Yeah.
So that's the great thing about when you really understand how this whole thing works.
Agree.
And again,
Larry.
this podcast was not meant to go deep into this and explain the nuance of it. Another great thing about the Kolbe A Index, Dave, that I don't see a lot of organizations like Myers-Briggs. I do like Myers-Briggs, but I'm just as an example, or DISC, is that there is both. When you get the results, they go into detail. What does this mean for you?
Right.
Here's why. This is how you're great in both written format, and I don't know if they still do. I think they still have recordings from Kathy Kolbe actually describing here's what this means.
They do. Like for each section, I was looking at it now, they have like a minute or a couple minute little audio of her explaining it. It's awesome. It's really good.
Yeah, it is really good. Okay.
Awesome. Well, I think you explained it really, really well. And it just reminded me of so many things. It's like, I really need to go back and look at mine and my teams and see, how are we really doing on it? I mean, we've done that before, but I think it's worth doing, again, every now and then.
Well, I think it's important also for people, for those who have not actually gone through the HireMyVA program or not gone through the Victory Masterclass, is to understand that highly effective organizations use these as tools during the candidate recruitment and interviewing process. Okay. So that once you come down with your final candidates, you give them a couple of these assessments and you help determine, okay, is this person going to be a good fit for the organization?
And a good fit with you as the leader of the organization.
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome.
Right.
Larry, that was great overview. And as usual, I learned some good stuff again, too.
Good. It was a good reminder for me, too.
Yeah. Well, folks, stick around for the next episode. That's going to be number 87. We're going to talk about what's a good score for, different employees. And we'll go into maybe a little bit more in depth about what would match and what won't match. We had a couple of examples, but there's going to be more in the next one. Yeah. So make sure you join us for that. And thank you for joining us today, because remember, building a team is the way to reclaim your freedom. And we're here to help you with our course and community and our white glove service, where we find a rock star VA for you. Yeah. But for now, 3 things we want you to do. We'd really, really appreciate it. Number 1, subscribe to this podcast. Yep. If you haven't already done so, give us a thumbs up, do comments below, etc. If you have already subscribed, give us a rating, because it'll help us get the word out. And then the next thing is just go to HireMyVA.com for more information on our membership, our course and community, and of course, our newly launched white glove service. Remember, even without experience, we help you to prepare, hire, and thrive with virtual assistants. Larry and I, we've helped a lot of folks. We want to keep helping more, including you. So just go to HireMyVA.com for more information.
Yeah. Hey, folks, David used this word a couple of times. The community for the HireMyVA Victory community are really, really powerful. If you're having a challenge in your business or in your life, you got an idea, you got an opportunity you want to talk about, go to those communities and just throw a message in there, and we can kind of brainstorm this with you. But do yourself a favor, do the world a favor, go do something significant today. So God bless you, God keep you, God hold you. All right, my friends. Go get them. We'll see you later.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.